Over 60? Discover 4 shocking carbs to avoid and 4 incredible foods for a transformative life. The words blasted from the flyer pinned to the downtown bulletin board, catching Helen's eye like a shimmering light in a tangled web of doubts. She stood frozen in front of the colorful announcement, her mind racing with conflicting thoughts. The town had a way of viewing people like her, older, widowed, and the relentless pressure to conform to their expectations settled heavily on her shoulders. Lately, she had become aware of how her children watched her with a mixture of love and fear, their worry hanging in the air like an uninvited guest at Sunday dinner. Was she becoming a burden? Helen's heart ached at the thought. She was still vibrant, full of stories and laughter that had once captivated her family during gathering after gathering. Yet, lately, every laugh felt strained, every smile tinged with the unspoken worries of those she adored. As her health wavered, even the apple pies that once brought her so much joy felt restrictive, an emblem of what she was supposed to be rather than what she truly wanted. The pressure to surrender, to accept the role of the frail elderly woman, gnawed at her spirit. She wished to push back against society's limitations, but the weight of her family's concerns pressed her down. Torn between the need to maintain her independence and the wish to ease her children's fears, Helen felt suffocated. They meant well, she reminded herself, as she stood outside the quaint shops with the sweet scent of baked goods wafting through the air. But what would happen to her once they determined she needed permission to make her own choices? What would they think of her newfound desire for a life beyond sweet treats and cozy evenings? The thought of being labeled a burden made her insides twist. Helen couldn't shake the feeling that she was failing them. The workshop flyer fluttered in her hand, beckoning her with vibrant promises. A chance to learn, to explore an alternative route that could reshape her life. As she stepped into the workshop later that day, she felt an unfamiliar spark of determination awaken. The speaker, full of energy, shared tales of how nutrition and choice could revive the spirit and body alike. The naivety of her days spent flipping through recipe cards transformed. Suddenly, a new path emerged that shimmered with possibility. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. No longer did she want her culinary journey to be merely about food. It was also about autonomy, the very essence of who she was as a mother, a grandmother, and an individual. She placed the salad on the table, feeling a swell of determination. It was not just a dish, it was her proclamation of self-love, a statement that she would no longer muffle her desires for the sake of others' comfort. Yet, as her daughters entered the room, their faces reflected concern masked as care. "Mom, are you sure you want to put yourself out there like this?" one daughter inquired, her voice laced with that familiar undertone of caution. Helen felt her heart race, not out of fear, but defiance. "I'm sure. I want to share what I'm doing, and I want you to be proud," she responded, her voice firm yet gentle. Each word fortified her resolve, revealing a newfound capability to stand her ground. Yet doubt didn't easily dissolve. Later that night, as she reflected on the day's conversations, Helen questioned whether she had the authority to redefine herself. This internal struggle stirred something within her, a raw desire to confront the expectations imposed upon her, a desire to be seen as more than the caregiver who baked cookies, rather than as an explorer of tastes, creativity, and life. The night before the showcase, rest evaded her, replaced by an array of thoughts. She jotted down her motivations, not only for her cooking, but for her very being. A list emerged, detailing the life she envisioned, one that included vibrant experiences, bold adventures, and perhaps even pursuing culinary classes beyond her comfort zone. As dawn broke, an opportunity arose. She would not only showcase her salad, but also share her journey, the hurdles and the triumphs that framed her transformation. This decision fused a sense of relief with a pang of fear. However, it was a fear she chose to embrace. Helen arrived at the showcase buoyed by a cocktail of nerves and eagerness, her spirit igniting the moment she stepped onto the stage. The room filled with familiar faces, yet one part of her wondered whether they could see her newly uncovered truth. Would they accept this evolved version of Mom, or would they only see her through the lens of their fears? As she stood there, spoon poised to serve, uncertainty draped her heart. Did she have the fortitude to confront those doubts, or would she retreat into shadows once again? The moment was critical, and the time had come to face not just her audience, but the deepest layers of her own identity. Could she truly manage to merge the woman she used to be with the one she was becoming? As excitement and anxiety collided within her, Helen was left hanging on the cusp of revelation. Helen took a deep breath, grounding herself in the present moment. The stage beneath her felt both foreign and familiar, a canvas on which she would paint her newly claimed identity. The audience's faces blurred into one, yet their expectancy pulsed around her like a living thing. She was not just serving a salad, she was about to unveil a piece of her spirit. "Good evening, everyone," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. But as she continued, clarity surged through her. "Tonight, I want to share something more than just the flavors of this dish. I want to share my journey, a journey of self-discovery fueled by the love of cooking." With each word, Helen felt her trepidation ebb away, replaced by a tide of empowerment. As she recounted the trials that led her to this moment, she noticed the audience responding, nodding in acknowledgement, leaning in as if her story resonated with their unvoiced dreams. She spoke of the nights spent in the kitchen, surrounded by aromas of spices that danced in her mind like memories half remembered. She painted the struggle of balancing the roles of mother and individual, reflecting how each meal was more than a recipe. It was a testament to her growth. Surrounded by both silence and anticipation, Helen elaborated on her newfound culinary identity. With each ingredient she described, she infused her passion and purpose, crafting a narrative that was vibrant and authentic. "Cooking is not merely about creating dishes. It is an act of courage," she declared, sensing the recognition of her audience. "It's about stepping out of our comfort zones, facing our fears. It's about being seen." The words poured forth, echoing the fear she had wrestled with before stepping onto this stage. No longer did she recoil at the thought of judgment. Instead, she embraced the potential for both acceptance and criticism, illuminating the very nature of her transformation. As she presented her salad, every compliment from the audience and every fork that pierced through vibrant greens filled her heart with a warmth she hadn't expected. She reveled in the laughter shared over her anecdotes, celebrating small victories together. It was liberation wrapped in the simplest of flavors, and she found herself smiling genuinely. Yet, just as the applause enveloped her, a whisper of doubt began to creep back in. Would this newfound confidence stand the test of time? The cheers felt like ephemeral bubbles, fragile against the weight of returning reality. Helen questioned whether her victory was merely a fleeting triumph, a momentary surge against the towering expectations still looming in her life. After the showcase, Helen received congratulations from friends and fellow cooks. Gratitude rushed through her, yet so did the weight of her daughter's earlier concerns. "Mom, are you really sure about this?" They had questioned it gently, but the underlying fear still tethered them. While she was immersed in celebration, a familiar tension tightened her chest. Was she truly ready to step further into this new realm? To redefine her role without losing sight of her original purpose as a mother? Each praise felt like a weight added to her accolades, intensifying the sense that she was standing at a crossroads. In the days that followed, her culinary exploration flourished. Helen threw herself into new recipes, immersing in online classes that promised not only culinary skills but daring adventures. Each dish became a reflection of her evolving sense of self, a blend of the woman she had always been with the one she dared to become. Yet, the deeper she delved into this world, the more questions unfurled. She observed herself molding into a figure she barely recognized. Bright and determined, yes, but also vulnerable and scattered. Was her quest to reclaim her individuality an act of defiance or a betrayal? The shape of her new identity now felt both empowering and disorienting. That afternoon, while experimenting with a flamboyant new recipe, the realization struck her. She had embarked on a journey not just of cooking, but of confronting how she wanted to live. This thought ignited within her, a faint spark transforming into a blazing flame as she pondered the possibility of merging her new passions with her existing relationships. However, in confronting her daughters again, would she find acceptance or further resistance? With this looming inquiry, Helen was left to chart her path. Which would she prioritize? The new chapter she yearned to carve out, or the family fears that could still bind her? The answer held the key to her future, but the fear of losing her old self lingered amidst the alluring call of transformation. The heavy silence of the kitchen enveloped Helen as she moved between counters, vibrant herbs and spices strewn about in her wake. Each chopping sound resonated deeply within her, a metronome marking the rhythm of a new life. The kitchen had become her sanctuary, a space where she could experiment, create, and further unravel her complicated identity. Yet, the echoes of her daughter's concerns lingered, casting shadows over her light. Determined to confront that unease, she reached for fresh ingredients, guiding her hands through the familiar motions of preparation. The knife slid effortlessly through vegetables, each slice a small assertion of control over her burgeoning role as both a mother and an individual. However, her excitement was tinged with guilt. She could imagine the girls' worried faces, beloved, yet tethered to her own fears. What if she crossed a line? Was it possible to balance her flaming ambition with the nurturing essence expected of her? Later that week, while scrolling through social media, Helen stumbled upon a video of a renowned chef discussing the balance between professionalism and personal life. "Your kitchen is your canvas. Make it a reflection of you," he said. And his words hung in the air, igniting something in Helen she hadn't quite understood. Would she ever be able to authentically merge these divergent aspects of her life? Her impulsive decision to sign up for a culinary collaboration workshop felt reckless, but it was also a calculated risk, one that could potentially alleviate the growing disparity between her dreams and her current life. The workshop promised not only skills, but also the connections that might help her find her voice in a community that felt so far removed from her traditional role. As the day approached, anticipation bubbled within her, yet so too did anxiety. What if her effort to step into this new identity felt like a betrayal to her daughters? When Helen arrived at the workshop, a swirl of creativity greeted her as her fellow participants shared their stories and motivations. She felt a warm camaraderie, but a part of her remained distant, wary that the connections wouldn't hold firm once real life intruded. Listening to others describe their journeys stirred a long-buried desire in her. Younger Helen had been vibrant and curious, eager to explore the world, but caught in the crippling cycle of expectations. A flicker of rebellion ignited within her as she listened. Why couldn't she reclaim that lost spirit? Inspiration washed over her with the collective energy of eager dreamers, But it was short-lived as her daughter's voices whispered uncertainties again. Could she flourish here without sacrificing the bonds she held dear? Confronting her own insecurities, she gradually stepped forward into her participation, cooking new recipes, improvising flavors that danced together in harmony. She felt a sense of liberation for the first time since embarking on this journey. Each plate she created was a reflection not of the role she was told to fulfill, but of the vibrant woman she aspired to become. But as the workshop progressed, Helen faced an unexpected dilemma. One of her fellow cooks, a lively young woman, began questioning Helen about her choices. "How do you balance this with your duties as a mother?" she pressed, genuine curiosity mingling with concern. This spotlight turned her every thought into a battleground, forcing Helen to confront the parts of her life she had wrestled to reconcile. Would she retreat back, clinging to safety, or would she challenge the boundaries that threatened to constrict her spirit and make a stand for her dreams? The tension built within her, leaving her teetering on the edge of uncertainty, craving liberation but fearful of fracture. As Helen struggled with this confrontation, determination surged through her veins. Standing tall, she embraced the uncertainty ahead. But what awaited her at home, where her daughters would surely have questions of their own? The delicate balance of her aspirations and family ties now pushed her toward an inevitable reckoning. With her mind racing, Helen knew a choice awaited her: stand her ground or retreat back into the familiar shadows that no longer felt like home. How she responded would shape the contours of her heart, and the answers lay just beyond her reach. The moment of truth loomed closer, and Helen had to decide how much she was willing to risk for the life she envisioned. The kitchen engulfed Helen again, a familiar labyrinth where she could dissect her thoughts like the vegetables she had cut at the workshop. She arrived home that evening with a small bouquet of herbs and a new recipe idea, but the weight of her return felt different. It was as though she had stepped into a world where she was no longer just Mom, but Helen, the aspiring chef. The echoes of camaraderie from the workshop infused her spirit with both excitement and apprehension. Setting the table for dinner, Helen couldn't help but replay the earlier exchange in her mind. The young woman's question resonated ominously. How do you balance this with your duties as a mother? It made her reevaluate everything she had done up to that point. Helen knew the fight within her wasn't just about culinary skills. It was about reclaiming herself while ensuring her daughters felt secure and loved. As the smell of sautéing vegetables filled the air, Helen's daughters entered, curious yet cautious. Their fidgeting gave way to glances at the new array of ingredients spread out on the counter. The eldest, Lily, couldn't hide her skepticism. "Are we having that weird stuff again?" she asked, scrunching her nose at the herbs. A pang of frustration struck Helen. Why did they see her passion as a source of strangeness? "Give it a chance," Helen urged, stirring the mixture that was meant to blossom under careful attention, just like their relationships. The contrast of nurturing her dreams and their expectations often felt like pouring salt into simmering water, a necessary addition, but one that could result in bitterness if not measured properly. As they sat together for dinner, tensions ebbed and flowed like the food she served. Words slipped out cautiously. The dinner table became a landscape of exchange where they debated tastes. Helen tried to ease tension by sharing her experiences at the workshop, unraveling tales of creativity and exploration. "It's about finding new flavors, just like life," she said, trying to draw parallels between the two. "We can learn to appreciate new experiences, even if they challenge what we know." Yet, instead of the engagement she had hoped for, silence blanketed the table as the girls pushed peas around their plates. Helen felt a storm brewing within her, stifled by the very air thick with expectation and doubt. She wanted to be a role model, to show them that pursuing a passion and being a good parent could coexist harmoniously. But how could she instill this belief if all they saw was a mother who stepped away from their norm? With mounting urgency, Helen laid down the utensils and faced her daughters.
"I want you to understand something," she began, her voice steady despite the tremors of fear and doubt.
"It's important for me to pursue what makes me happy. I hope you can see how this journey is helping me be a better mom, one who loves herself enough to teach you how to love yourselves too." The words hung between them, exposed and unguarded. Helen held her breath, waiting for a response that might confirm her fears or affirm her resolve. Lily exchanged a glance with her younger sister, then broke the silence. "But, Mom, what if we don't understand it all?" The question dripped with honesty, piercing straight through to Helen's core. It wasn't just a challenge, but an invitation to bridge the divide between their worlds. As Helen prepared to dive deeper into conversation, realizing this was a pivotal moment, another thought nagged at her. Could offering vulnerability create understanding, or would it lay her aspirations bare, opening her to further scrutiny? She could see in their eyes that the discussion could either forge a connection or fracture the ground beneath their feet. The stakes felt higher than ever, as a simple culinary journey threaded its way into the very fabric of their family identity. How could she steer this precious moment without losing herself and them in the process? In the midst of her reflections, the potential for breakthrough loomed invitingly close. Would this exchange bring them closer together, or would it drift back into the silent fears of the past? The tension hung thick, ready to crescendo, and the resolution felt tantalizingly close, yet terrifyingly far. What would her daughters reveal about their own desires, and how might this alter Helen's path forward? Helen's heart thudded under the weight of her daughter's uncertainty. She could feel the chasm widening with every hesitant moment, her desire to be understood colliding with the reality of their apprehension. She took a deep breath, seeking the calm she often found in the kitchen, and tried to channel her culinary passion into words. "Let's try something," she proposed, a flicker of determination igniting her voice. "How about we create a dish together? I can show you what I learned at the workshop, and you can help me choose the flavors. We can make this our project." Lily raised an eyebrow, curiosity briefly overshadowing her skepticism. "Really? You mean we wouldn't just eat what you made?" "Yes, we'll all work together, and you can pick the ingredients you like or dislike. It could be fun." Helen's spirits lifted slightly with the thought of collaboration, a tantalizing spark of hope in her chest. As they cleared the table, Helen felt invigorated by a sense of empowered purpose, but under the rush of excitement lay a persistent undertow of anxiety. Could she actually involve her daughters in her culinary exploration without overwhelming them? With the kitchen now a shared canvas, Helen began to explain techniques while inviting Lily and her younger sister, Emma, into the process. The kitchen's familiar hum enveloped them, easing the tension. Chopping vegetables became less about the end goal and more about the joy of creating something together. As she explained how to balance flavors, Helen caught glimpses of her daughters transfixed by the process, smiling when they tasted their creations. Amidst the laughter, their doubts began melting away, like ice under the warmth of the sun. Each slice of cucumber, each sprinkle of herbs, seemed to stitch together the frayed threads of their connection. They were no longer merely a mother and her daughters, they were collaborators, co-creating a shared experience. And yet, despite the budding camaraderie, a shadow lurked at the back of Helen's mind. What if they were merely appeasing her to avoid uncomfortable conversations? Later that evening, as the family sat down to enjoy the meal they had crafted together, Helen surveyed their faces, searching for clues. Were they genuinely engaged or just placating her? As laughter and conversation flowed around the table, she felt a thriving energy that had been absent in recent weeks. But the underlying question haunted her. Could fleeting moments of connection truly bridge the gap between her ambitions and their expectations, or were these only ephemeral spikes in a long simmering conflict?
As Emma excitedly chirped about their next culinary adventure, Helen mulled over the necessity of vulnerability. Was she brave enough to invite them on this journey not only of cooking, but of letting her dreams unfurl? With each bite, she could feel her own barrier softening, but insecurities bubbled just below the surface. That night, as the dishes clattered in the sink, Helen's resolve twisted into something sharper, something more tyrannical. A voice emerged, demanding clarity. She needed to confront this tension not only during dinner, but in every interaction moving forward. What if she used her cooking journey as a mirror, reflecting her growth both to her daughters and to herself? Could creating an open dialogue about their feelings lead to understanding? The very notion sent her heart racing with a cocktail of fear and excitement. With that realization igniting within her, Helen prepared for a confrontation, not with her daughters, but with herself. She wouldn't shy away from expressing her needs as a mother or her aspirations as a chef any longer. The moment felt electric, shimmering with the promise of true connection or painful rejection. As she drifted into fitful sleep, a question pulsed through her mind. What would it require for Helen to truly open up to her children about her dreams? What if this vulnerability could teach them the value of passion alongside responsibility? The sun filtered through the kitchen window, illuminating a space now imbued with a sense of daring purpose. As Helen navigated her morning routine, the aroma of fresh coffee mingled with the lingering smells of last night's culinary adventure. Each sip steadied her racing thoughts. Today was not about avoidance, but about forging pathways toward genuine connection. She had spent the night pondering strategies, mentally scripting conversations with her daughters. "I can do this," she muttered to herself, feeling an unfamiliar blend of strength and resolve coursing through her. It was time to fully embrace her passion and articulate it without hesitation. After breakfast, she gathered the girls. "I want us to talk about yesterday's cooking session," she began, her voice steady despite the fluttering in her chest. "I loved spending that time together, and it made me realize something important." Lily glanced up, expecting a typical discussion about chores or school. Emma, always more attuned to the emotional currents, leaned in slightly, her curiosity piqued. Helen swallowed hard, searching for the right words as the gravity of what lay ahead pressed against her. "I've been thinking about my dreams, my cooking, how it's not just a hobby, but a big part of who I am. And I want to share that with both of you. It's scary to put myself out there, but I hope it can inspire you too." A tentative silence enveloped the room. Helen watched her daughters process her admission, feeling the tension spiraling inside her like a coiled spring. She could see them weighing her vulnerability against their own fears. Could they understand her desire for more? "What do you mean?" Emma asked, breaking the silence. "You want us to learn how to cook, like, more seriously?" Helen seized the opportunity. "Yes, but it's more than just cooking. It's about exploring flavors, taking risks, and learning from mistakes. I want you both to feel the joy and even the frustration that comes with passion. It can be beautiful, and it can also challenge us." Lily's expression shifted from skepticism to contemplation. "But what if we don't like what you make, or if we're not good at it?" That moment ignited a flicker of despair within Helen. She had never meant to pressure them. "It's not about being good. It's about trying new things without judgment. I've faced my fears in pursuing this journey, and I want us to do that together, as a family." As the gravity of her words settled, Helen began to elucidate her plans. "What if we set aside time each week for a cooking night? You could both choose what we create based on your interests." Emma's eyes lit up, her excitement dangerous and infectious. "Can I pick dessert?" "Absolutely. Whatever you choose, we'll experiment. It'll be our project." Hope fueled Helen as she watched her daughters exchange glances, weighing their options and thoughts against the possibilities. Moments later, genuine joy broke through, and laughter filled the kitchen as they brainstormed ideas. Still, the tremors of self-doubt quivered at the edges of Helen's resolve. What if her vulnerability failed to resonate? What if they burrowed into their apprehensions until her dreams shattered?
She silently chastised herself for ever doubting this venture. Yet growth often resided at the precipice of discomfort. In the ensuing days, Helen focused on crafting a persistent narrative about ambition, failure, and perseverance to instill in her daughters. Even as she articulated her passion, the specter of rejection loomed large. But with each shared idea, she observed a subtle shift in the dynamic, an invitation to engage rather than retreat. Determined to embrace whatever unfolded, Helen concluded each day by reminding herself of her goals, creating not just delicious meals, but a lasting bond through shared experiences. As the weekend approached, Helen sensed a looming opportunity to implement her ideas, a chance for deeper exploration within their lives. However, with anticipation pulsing through her veins, she also felt the weight of fear. How would her daughters truly respond when challenged to embrace the chaotic beauty of cooking? What revelations awaited them, and did she have the fortitude to weather the ensuing storm? The next chapter beckoned, and standing on the brink, Helen had never felt more alive. The day arrived, filled with the resonance of potential, as Helen stood in the kitchen, her heart a blend of excitement and unease. The cooking night was finally here, a canvas for her to paint with experiences, laughter, and lessons. She had prepared diligently, setting the stage with colorful ingredients and utensils laid out like an artist readying her palette. As she waited for Lily and Emma to join, her mind raced through every possible scenario. What if they were resistant? What if the evening fizzled out? In the silence of the kitchen, the sound of her own thoughts felt deafening. These were the questions that toyed with her self-belief, yet she pushed them aside, reminding herself of the budding enthusiasm she saw in her daughter's eyes days before. When Lily and Emma finally entered, the warmth of their presence seemed to illuminate the space. "Are we ready to be culinary geniuses?" Emma grinned, her earlier hesitation melting away. Helen's heart swelled. Her daughters were engaging, stepping forward to take part in this shared experience. "Definitely. Tonight we're making spaghetti from scratch. You'll each get to choose a sauce, and I believe we have some extra secret ingredients." Helen grinned, her anticipation heightening. She handed them each a packet of flour, eggs, and a rolling pin. The ingredients shimmered with possibility, just like their uncharted evening. As they began, Helen encouraged them to experiment, inviting them to adjust seasonings or to make the dough as they desired. With flour dust settled lightly on their noses, laughter erupted. But as the dough pressed beneath their palms, she sensed an unglued thread surfacing. Lily had become quiet, her smile fading intermittently as she wrestled with her frustrations of creating the perfect pasta. Helen's heart sank a little. She remembered herself at that age, grappling with expectations and perceived failures. "Hey, Lily, remember, it's not about perfection. It's about enjoying the process. Let's embrace the mess," she said gently, nudging beyond the walls Lily had built around herself. With a hesitant nod, Lily engaged again, though the inner turmoil was still evident. Helen watched her daughter struggle, recalling her own fears that resonated between them. It was an unspoken challenge, but it was a necessary step, a chance for growth for both of them. As the evening unfurled, they moved through dishes, mixing meats for sauces, and rolling out dough. Each stage sparked interest and curiosity. Emma had quickly taken to her dessert choice, a chocolate lava cake, her eyes sparkling with adventure. The kitchen became a battleground of splatters and giggles, with every mistake serving as an opportunity for laughter, not disappointment. However, beneath the jovial surface, Helen felt another wave of doubt creeping in. Were they really absorbing her messages of perseverance and creativity? Were her efforts truly resonating? Just as she began to question herself again, Emma accidentally splashed sauce across the floor.
her startled laughter turning into a contagious wave for all three of them. "Looks like the sauce wanted to dance," Helen exclaimed, relief flooding through her. The chaos transformed into a lively game, an affirmation that they were all in it together. As the evening concluded and they sat around the table, bowls filled with steaming pasta and sweet cake, Helen pondered the journey they had taken together. It was illuminating, a symphony of rapid emotions interwoven with newfound strength. Each bite held the thrill of collaboration, of pushing limits, and unexpectedly confronting vulnerabilities. However, as the laughter echoed around the table, Helen sensed an intimate truth had yet to reveal itself. What deeper revelations about herself and her daughters were bound to surface beyond this night? The horizon held challenges yet unseen, promising a journey of more profound connections. And just then, as the final plates were cleared, a spark ignited between Helen and her daughters, a discussion that would challenge their understanding of each other even further. What would they uncover about their dreams, and how would they face the impending fears lurking in the shadows? The kitchen buzzed with a new energy as the remnants of their cooking adventure shimmered in the evening light. Helen could still feel the warmth of laughter lingering, a palpable reminder of what they had created together. But beneath that surface, an unsettling uncertainty gnawed at her. This evening had merely scratched at the complex fabric of their relationships. As the girls began to clear the table, Helen seized the moment. "How about we talk about our favorite part of the night?"
Her voice rolled out with the hope that they instantly shared their thoughts, but hesitation lay thick in the air. Emma and Lily exchanged glances, a silent tug-of-war of comfort and uncertainty before Emma spoke up. "I loved making the sauce. It felt like magic," she said, her eyes sparkling with excitement. Lily chimed in, her tone softer. "I liked the mess, but I was really frustrated about the pasta. I wanted it to be perfect." Helen's heart sank again, the echo of that familiar disappointment resonating inside her. She knew that feeling all too well, the weight of expectations clinging to one's spirit, heavy and suffocating. "But what matters is that we had fun," Helen urged, her own insecurities wrestling with the urge to console her daughter. "Perfection is just an illusion. Sometimes the most magical moments come from what seems like a mess." Lily listened, her gaze drifting towards the stack of flour-covered tools. Helen desperately wanted to reach their hearts, to chip away at the insecurities that seemed to plague them. "What did you discover about yourselves tonight? Who do you want to become in the kitchen and beyond?" Emma's eyes brightened. "I never thought I could make dessert. It was kind of scary, but I loved it." Lily turned her attention to her sister, a flicker of admiration escaping her lips. Something in Helen shifted. There it was, the light of possibility igniting in Lily's expression. "I guess I just want to figure out how to not worry so much," she said, and Helen noted the vulnerability wrapped in her words. Encouraged, Helen leaned in. "Why don't we make this a regular thing? Explore food, creativity, ourselves. We can each bring a new ingredient or recipe each week." "Can we do more desserts?" Emma jumped in eagerly. "And could we do those weird exotic dishes too?" Lily hesitated, but then nodded. "Yeah, I'd want to try something outrageous." "Yes, and we can learn from our mistakes along the way." Helen's excitement surged. This was it. This was the creation of a safe space where both her daughters could cultivate their interests and shed their fears. But just as she bathed in that warmth, a nagging thought crept back. What if this vulnerability fostered deeper fears? What if new expectations arose? As the evening turned richer with dialogue, a tension brewed within Helen, one shaped by her own failure to demand more from herself as a mother. When had she begun to settle for surface interactions instead of fostering deeper connections? While cleaning the counters, she caught Lily staring at her blankly, contemplating the silence. In that moment, Helen resolved to dig deeper, to encourage her daughters to share their ambitions and disappointments more candidly. "What dreams are you hiding?
"What's haunting you beneath?" she asked softly, her heart racing. The question hung in the air like the aroma of their freshly made dishes, dense and potent. As if cloaked in silence, the kitchen transformed into a confessional space, deeper bonds beckoning to be forged. Longing erupted as a flicker of courage shined in Lily's eyes, but just as Helen prepared for what was to unfold, doubt whispered again. Would they really open up, or would this moment scatter like flour in the wind? The air thickened with anticipation, rippling with unanswered questions, and as the clock ticked on the wall, the true exploration of their intertwined desires and fears stood just at the brink of revelation. What would they discover next, and how much further could they dive into the uncharted depths of their hearts? Helen stood in the kitchen, a sense of clarity washing over her as the sun cast warm rays through the window. The week had been transformative as she and her daughters explored the culinary landscape together. The laughter shared during their cooking sessions now infused her with a profound sense of purpose. They had crossed a threshold, forging a connection that spoke to their growth, not just as cooks, but as a family navigating their identities. As they prepared for another cooking night, the ingredients scattered across the counter invited creativity. This week, they decided to tackle homemade pizza, a canvas for their collective imaginations. Helen even arranged to include quirky toppings that reflected each daughter's favorite flavors, a testament to their intertwined journeys. It felt vibrant, alive, and utterly fulfilling. "You ready to unleash your cooking genius?" Helen called out as Lily and Emma entered, their eyes sparkling with anticipation. This was no longer about her own ambitions alone. It was about building an environment that nurtured both her daughters' voices and her own aspirations. "I've been thinking about what toppings I might try," Lily chirped, her excitement contagious. Emma nodded, equally engaged. The kitchen buzzed with ideas, each daughter reflecting the spirit of innovation that Helen aimed to cultivate. In those moments, it was clear. She had moved from a sense of obligation to passion, from fear to empowerment. As they gathered ingredients, she took a step back to observe them. Their enthusiasm, determination, and laughter filled the air with vitality. They were no longer just participating. They were owning their creativity, learning through exploration and expressing themselves boldly. In co-creating dishes, Helen began to see a new layer of connection form, and with it, her daughters were shedding previous reservations. While mixing dough, Lily spoke up. "Remember when I said I wanted everything to be perfect? I'm focused on just having fun now. Messy is kind of great." That declaration hung in the air, a powerful testament not only to her growth, but to the implicit lessons they had shared during their culinary journey. Helen's heart swelled. "Exactly. It's about the adventure, not the outcome," she encouraged, sensing a shift within herself.
This evening was not merely about cooking. It was an exploration of authentic self-expression. As they shared the process and wrapped colorful creations in laughter, she reflected on her growth. Facing her daughters, their needs, fears, and attributes had acted as a mirror. Through their shared challenges, her own identity blossomed, entwined with their aspirations and newly embraced vulnerabilities. However, as the night unfolded and the aroma of baking pizza filled the air, Helen found herself standing at another crucial juncture. What were her true ambitions beyond the faded remnants of old expectations? What did she truly want to pursue, not just in the kitchen, but in her life after reclaiming this vibrant identity? "You know," she began, her tone shifting into deeper contemplation, "I was thinking, it's not just about cooking together. This can be a place we explore our dreams. How about we take this further?" Her daughters paused, eager curiosity reflected in their eyes. "Me and my friends have been talking about starting a little food blog," Emma exclaimed, her voice rife with excitement. "We can share the recipes we create. I think it could help us learn more." Lily's face lit up.
What if we showcased our culinary adventures together? It doesn't have to be fancy, just real. Helen felt a surge of pride and resonance with their vision. They were drawing from what they had cultivated together, not only nurturing their dreams, but refusing to let the mundane overshadow bold aspirations. With a gentle nod, Helen confirmed, "Absolutely. Let's capture the essence of our experiences in the kitchen, our fails, our successes, and everything in between." The conversation flowed freely, intertwined with laughter and camaraderie. The fear she once felt about being a perceived burden dissipated completely. Her daughters embraced her passion while forging their own. It was an experience she had long sought, a connection where ambition coalesced with love and understanding. As they set their dishes on the table, the culmination of flavors and memories ignited a newfound spirit. There, surrounded by the aroma of their creations, Helen felt rooted in her identity, anchor and navigator of a family striving to embrace authenticity anew. With each bite savored, she understood she had not only transformed her own life, but had illuminated paths for her daughters to flourish. Standing securely in her own skin, she felt gratitude shine bright. They had charted a course where ambition mingled with love, all rooted in the culinary world they created together. As she surveyed the table, Helen felt the profound weight of fulfillment. The intricate balance of being a mother and an individual no longer threatened her. It became her greatest achievement. This journey had provided her daughters with the courage to embrace their identities and passions, empowering each to take risks.
And for Helen, it represented more than just reclaiming a spark. It was a resonance of confidence, a delivery of warmth, and a hard-fought resolution connecting them all through culinary art. With a deep breath, she wrapped her arm around each daughter as they finished their meal, suffused with both accomplishment and love. The moment shimmered, their bond now fortified across the shared creation of joy and ambition. Her past fears had become mere shadows, marking the ground they had traversed together, a pathway to endless delicious discoveries. Now the world was theirs to explore, a tapestry of flavors and futures ahead, each color brighter and more vibrant than the last. As the evening drew to a close, Helen resolved to continue this journey, inviting authentic conversations as roadmaps. Together, she knew they would navigate the rich complexities of life, aligned in heart despite the challenges that lay ahead. This was not merely a triumphant moment in the kitchen. It was a legacy waiting to be told, an identity emerging resolutely from her spirit as life unfolded beautifully, one recipe at a time. Now, dear viewers, this is the time for you to take action. You need to subscribe immediately to our channel so you don't miss out on the next exclusive emotional stories that inspire self-discovery and transformation. Leave a like now to help energize our reach. It truly makes a difference. Comment your reactions, favorite moments, or theories about Helen's journey. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who also deserve to see this incredible conclusion of empowerment and growth. Join this movement. Your support is critical.